Welcome to this episode of How to Watch a Movie as a Christian. I'm Riley.
I'm Javen.
I'm Josh.
How to watch Robin Hood as a Christian. What year was Robin Hood invented? The cartoon.
68.
Okay, 68. So Robin Hood is a Disney cartoon made in 68, directed by
Wolfgang Reitherman.
Wolfgang Reitherman. Sounds like a great name for a vape shop.
What? Yeah, that's a really good point. Really good point.
Okay, so Josh, can you introduce yourself? Who are you?
I'm Josh. I'm married to a beautiful woman named Amy. Got some kids that are cool, and I own a coffee shop.
So me and Josh went to high school together. Javen currently works at said coffee shop. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to invite Josh because we thought it would be fun to talk about Josh's favorite movie, which is
Robin Hood.
the cartoon. Now, how does Robin Hood, the cartoon, compare to the other Robin Hoods? Men in Tights, Russell Crowe,
The really old one with Errol Flynn.
Errol Flynn.
The Snape one.
Whoa, he's in.
Alan Rickman?
I will cut your heart out with a spoon.
Does
Remember that
he
one?
play Robin Hood?
No, he does it. He plays the Prince John,
Oh, okay.
King John.
Oh, wow.
Is this Costner? That one?
Right, the Kevin Costner one.
Yeah, Kevin Costner one. Yeah.
Yeah, so there are so many.
It's a bad one.
Is the question is
That's my
this,
wife's favorite one, Josh.
is So, Josh, what is it about Robin Hood that you love so much?
It's a tight movie. There's no wasted scenes. It's all right out of the gates. It's fun the whole time. You're having fun, and it's got for a kid a really straightforward good guy, bad guy, henchman, the whole gang.
Yeah.
Right, and it's lighthearted. It's bright. It's got energy. It's wonderful. And then as you watch it, like for me now, like watching it with my kids, I'm like, oh, there's some grown-up fun in here where it's just kind of like, it's charming, it's nostalgic, but it's not all like, oh, what was I thinking? This is stupid stuff. It's like, oh, this is actually even better than I remember. Like if I made that movie, I'd be so proud of it.
I don't know how many times I have quoted 7 years bad luck.
I've got the quote line. I got a full quiver of those too. But my first
Stop
time watching,
hissing in my ear.
well, you're never there when I need you. It's a little stewy, but it's close. But I saw it at the chiropractor's office in Minnesota. When my mom would go to the chiropractor, there was a little stack of VHSs, and if there was no kid already watching one, I would get my little cup of goldfish from the receptionist, which was awesome, and then I would walk over and just handle it myself, and I wouldn't rewind. I just pick it up where we left it off. So wherever I was, and like the last scene, that it was the odds of someone else playing it were pretty low, and I would just turn on and be like, "Oh, there we go."
That's great.
That is awesome.
We didn't own it. I just watched it at the chiropractor.
Yeah.
Do you say Oodalali?
I'm starting to say it now. Oodalali.
Fortune tellers. Fortunes forecast. Lucky charms.
I honestly think I could do most of the whole movie. That's a problem.
Stop the coach.
Oh, how droll.
Your Prince John does sound like Stewie.
It's like Stewie Prince John. I just love Texas.
Okay, where did Robin Hood come from?
Josh, I read up on it this morning.
Yeah.
So from what I was reading, it's a very old myth that like the earliest sources that scholars can see comes from like the 15th century. But even those stories are pulling from somewhere that they can't really find. So it's a very, very, very old fable or myth.
Yeah, my kid, my oldest, was reading it in 4th grade. So I was reading it to him because he's dyslexic, so he has a hard time tracking. And so I'm reading it to him, and it's extremely violent. Robin Hood in the book is just John Wick, is what he is. Now, I'm reading the one that's like from the 1920s or 30s or something. There's another one from the 1800s.
Yeah.
So this is the one that they read in fourth grade, I guess. But the Crusades is like this virtuous, holy thing. Totally. Like Richard is out serving the Lord. And meanwhile, Robin, Maid Marian, and the gang, they're like proclaiming the gospel around Sherwood Forest and stuff. There's all this prayer and all this biblical stuff. And yeah, it's like, that's not in the Disney one.
Well, and like, even the just point of view on the Crusades and stuff, you're like, wait a minute, there's a lot in there. Totally. It's really easy in the late 60s to be like, here's the good guy. Yeah. Awesome. But I actually love in this movie that they do that so intricately right at the very beginning of Little John asking, are we the good guys or the bad guys? Mm-hmm. It's like an incredibly nuanced question for a kid brain that I remember from the chiropractor's office being like, what a question.
Well, yeah, I mean, like the morality of Robin Hood, and this is like central to the story. Sure. In that scene, Robin Hood responds to Little John by saying, we're not stealing it. We're, borrowing it from those who can afford it.
He gets real gray.
Do you think that the longevity of this film, how it is like, it's seeped into my bloodstream, and obviously Josh's, do you think that there's something, maybe a kernel there that is just so innate? Do you think that resonates with us at a deep level?
I think it's a universal story. It makes me think of like Batman, this vigilante that's like, this city, it's corrupt.
It's just shown you.
I just got to bring justice.
Yeah.
It has that energy, but more goofy to it. But that's those dynamics of a story of like justice, something that transcends people and what's going on here and trying to hit something up here almost. That's in a ton of different stories.
I'm always interested when a hero isn't trying to be the king.
Yeah.
That's always, I mean, like, so you got the true king in this case. He's out of town. Someone's going to take his place and rule. And then, often the real historical perspective of what happens next is someone tries to take the throne and does a lot in history. And this is one of those weird stories where that's why it's a folk tale for the people. It's a people's story because the people are like, yeah, well, one of the leaders, one of the people with power didn't try to take all the power. He tried to give the power. That story's going to stick around. Yeah. People love that. I love that.
Yeah.
One thing that we always kind of point out in our conversations is we ask, why is this thing so popular? And a lot we've sometimes talked about some of the stuff that's just flopped that people don't like. And a lot of times we're pointing out that it just doesn't resonate. It doesn't feel like it's a story for the people. Yeah. It doesn't hit, and so like, Robin Hood represents something that deeply resonates with people. And if you see yourself as a person of power and influence, or you want to be heroic, you can resonate with Robin Hood. But if you see yourself as the oppressed, on the bottom of the ladder, you also resonate with Robin Hood. And so Robin Hood sort of, I don't know, there's a reason why it's constantly being told, this story, Robin Hood.
It's tapping into a deep, almost meta story, right?
There's a movie that came out around the same time as Toy Story, Small Soldiers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that movie didn't last in the public consciousness as long, even though the premise, toys coming alive after dark or whatever, is similar to Toy Story. And you could just say, oh, that's just a worse movie, which it probably is. But I have a theory that it doesn't tap into the like human longing very well. Toy Story really is you watch that lately, it's like, ugh. And the point is that like I think even a kid can see that.
Yeah.
When you watch Robin Hood, there's something universal about it. The plot itself has this mechanism where they are waiting for, dare I say, the eschatological return of the king of some kind, right?
Yeah, the ruler is out of town. A corrupt regime has emerged and usurped power. the people are in danger, and a hero shows up to liberate them,
which is cool. And so therefore, like you can say that the return of King Richard sets things right. And so it's just jam packed with symbolism. Javen, like as a Christian, what kind of stands out to you as you watch this cartoon that mostly kids watch?
So you could point to like the climax of the story where the little bunny is running away and then he's like about to die and Robin Hood runs back to get him and then rescues him from the clutches of death and then is like escaping all the soldiers and then jumps off the fiery tower into the river and everyone thinks he's dead.
Right, he got put in that spot because he saved the bunny.
Right,
if he doesn't save the bunny, he's out. He's good.
Exactly.
It's clean getaway.
Clean getaway. And it's like, I mean, how can you not? I was watching going, that's just the gospel. I'm the little bunny running from the clutches of death. Savior comes in, saves me, and by doing so, dies.
Yeah, let me ask a question. Have you ever heard the phrase haunted by the cross or haunted by the gospel?
No. Oh,
it's the idea that like people who, maybe aren't Christian per se, they create art or they tell stories that are like just simply echoes. They can't help it. Right? I think of we've talked about the dude who created Breaking Bad. He's constantly in interviews saying, I'm not a Christian, but I just can't escape this idea of cosmic justice, which informs Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, all of his episodes of The X-Files, Right. This idea that your sin will find you out, that justice will prevail, that kind of thing. And he's haunted by the gospel. Another example would be like Trent Reznor in 9 Inch Nails. Like almost all his lyrics are just like, it's like, I know he's not a Christian or even an ex-Christian, but he's haunted by it. It's just he's shaped by it, even if it's not on purpose or something. And I wonder, we've often talked about like the hero with 1,000 faces, the hero's journey, the kind of the universal theme of self-sacrifice and salvation, like Robin Hood. Saves the bunny, jumps out into the moat, left for dead, but actually he's alive, right? Is it more the case that the writers of Robin Hood are simply tapping into a human thing that's just universal, or are they haunted by the gospel because the culture out of which Robin Hood emerges is a largely Christianized culture?
I mean, I'd speculate it's probably a little bit of both. I think also like stories, this is why I love talking about movies, is you get to compare stories from like the 60s compared to like stories that are made now. But I do think the culture not necessarily was Christian, but a lot of those topics were a lot more integrated in the cultural conversation, kind of just implicitly assumed. So I think they're probably tapping into like the original source, how there's a lot of gospel themes, and then also just the culture at large at that time. That was how you told stories.
Question for you both. How do you guys feel about Friar Tuck getting into a fight with the corrupt sheriff of Nottingham when he's trying to take the money out of the poor box, and he just rips in him like,
get out of my church.
That line. How do you feel about that scene where Friar Tuck is like, he hits his own line in the sand and he's like, I'm in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had no problem with it when I saw it.
Yeah.
I think that's what, there's this line in the C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy where Ransom is wrestling the devil. And there's this great line, it's almost a throwaway line, but where C.S. Lewis describes, in that moment, as Ransom was wrestling the devil, he discovered what hatred was for. And it made me think, like, what is hatred for? Like, we all hate at times, and most of the time it's a destructive thing. But I wonder if anger, hatred, I wonder if these things, they're for something. Like they're meant to do something. So if you are going to like bounce somebody with your huge belly,
Badger belly.
if you were to like by force exercise someone from a space, it would be for that sake.
Right.
You also stop someone from doing something unjustly. So I don't have any problem with it.
You also see Christ kind of do a very similar thing where he's like, you've made my temple a den of robbers, and takes a whip and whips them all out of the church.
Yeah, it's the whole turning over the tables bit. It's like I've as a grown up looked at this movie and been like, there's a lot of that stuff going on in here, man. Come on. Wolfgang.
Reeferman.
Wolfgang.
Yeah, so I wonder, like, Javen, you mentioned that the stories have changed. Have you noticed that? Are there gospel themes that are less common now? Like in the stories that we tell now, the movies out now, right?
A lot.
Has it diminished?
Yeah, there's less. I think what we're doing now has less than maybe some of this era of stuff. Hero's Journey stuff is still kind of out there once in a while. It floats around, right?
Yeah.
Thousand Faces stuff, sure. And then it's like, but there's a lot of I think movies are being made now that are sourcing a lot more global perspective things than Judeo-Christian things. I think that's pretty apparent.
Yeah.
So, and some of that is super interesting and helpful and all that.
Totally.
Yeah. What are some of the kind of the themes there? What are some of those themes? Because they do feel a little foreign. Since this is my culture, you know what I mean?
Bingo. Yeah.
Okay, maybe just to play off this, stories being told from a more South American, Central American, or equator, right, cultures. The film Encanto.
Oh yeah.
Right. So one of our elders is his family's from Mexico, and then some friends from Mexico. I was asking them about Encanto because I watched it with my kids and I didn't get it. The climax of the movie is the girl talking to her abuela by the river. That literally the climax is a conversation. And I was like, what? It felt anticlimactic. I didn't get it. I was actually a little miffed by it. So I asked, am I missing something there? And all of them said, oh yeah, that's in Hispanic culture, like the culture that they're tapping into there. That story, the closed off grandma, maternal, matriarchal figure who won't talk, right? So that, like, for them, it was like tears, right? And I was like, I just thought it was bad. You know what I mean? I thought it was like anticlimactic or something, and I just missed it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Some of the other ones, like even, I feel like Turning Red was one that was like educational for me just in advance of having 3 teenage daughters. I was like, well, this movie feels important to me. It's from another perspective, from another part of the world, but like thematic stuff was like, I have no experience in any of this.
Which is okay because we're living in a time when there's media out there that, like, there have been comments where it's like, this story is put out there, it flops or it doesn't do well or certain people hate it. And the comments by the creators sometimes have been, it's not for you. Totally. And part of that, I'm like, what? It's not for me. It's not for who? It's why? That seems stupid. But maybe are we saying that, like, what that means is that in a globalized world where, Disney and others are putting out like content in different languages, like original content in different languages.
As first production stuff.
Yeah. First production. Like that will be more and more the case.
Yeah. I think Robin Hood is this really interesting cross-section of right at the core of when the boomers who were very empowered were this was for them. This is a movie that informs their worldview a lot.
And the source material is hardcore Anglo-Christian, Western.
Right.
Well, thinking Crusades too, it's the core of England, America, and Israel alignment of stuff. It's
Yeah.
like this story right here.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, like some things are not for you, Josh, but this one is for you, bro. It's yours.
Exactly.
I love it. It does kind of make you think like the themes we were just saying, like the salvation theme, deliverance theme, sacrificial hero theme. That's like almost, we talk about like Judeo-Christian. The reality is Judeo-Christian, even as a term, did not come about till the 50s. So it just simply didn't exist. And so one of the kind of ideas behind Judeo-Christian themes is that it's actually a very narrow thing. And what we learn now as students of the scriptures is like there's way more to the Bible than, quote, Judeo-Christian themes. Right. It's very Eastern. There's a lot of this, a lot of that, a lot of themes. Like if you study the Bible at all, you're going to find yourself in another culture, in another world.
Turkish, Baltic. It's not at all, just for a really narrow Anglo viewpoint.
Yeah. Just really comforting for me of like, oh yeah, it's a global faith, not just an American faith, if that makes sense.
Do you feel that maybe apply at all when you like talk about like one side of your family being all Philippines, extended family, all these relatives and their culture? Do you see any of that at play where their view of scripture, their view of the gospel, their view of, I don't know, everything is just different?
Yeah, I mean, their view of scripture is different, I think, because their view of reality is just completely different. That's a huge part of it. For me, growing up, I remember being I still am to this day, extremely humbled of like, oh my word, I have like so much material privilege compared to them. And I have a like aching responsibility that I feel to like treasure that and savor it. Because I know that my family members in the Philippines, like my uncle, he makes a little bit more money today. But when I was younger, he was what's called a pedicab driver, which is basically like a taxi driver, but think on a motorcycle. Similar like Indiana Jones, with his dad's like on the side cart, and then he's driving the motorcycle. Right. That's basically what a pedicab is. So you drive people around. And he'd make like, on a good day, maybe 70 to 80 pesos in a day, for like 10 hours of work. And it's like 50 pesos to the dollar, which to me is just, that's insane to think about. That my uncle, for doing a whole day's worth of work, made a little over $1. And I'm here, recording a podcast.
Yeah.
Like, what is my life compared to them? And I think just that, even that dynamic of that shift completely changes their views of like having so little, but being extremely joyful with the gifts that they have. They're still human. They're still flawed. They still struggle with stuff. But that's, I think, an American struggle that I see that my family in the Philippines struggles with less.
I wonder if like Robin Hood as a story, one of the most appreciated and reasons why it's so long-lasting aspects to it is that as a story, it keeps you open to that experience. To be a Robin Hood-like figure means you have your eyes open. It doesn't mean that, Robin Hood as the source material is very like 15th century, medieval, Crusades era, Christendom kind of thing. And it's very like Western, right? It's extremely Western in its themes and its ideas. But by nature, as a story, it's open your eyes type of story. Yeah. And that's appreciated. We like that.
Absolutely. I mean, it inspired me to have a really great birthday party.
All right. This has been How to Watch a Movie as a Christian. We are Josh Javen and Riley.
That's your name.
See you at church.